Well, it's a gorgeous day in the garden today, and I've been having a wander and gathering some foliage to create an urn display in celebration of what would normally be RHS Tatton flower show, where everybody would be descending on Cheshire to celebrate the glories of the garden during July. So here I've just created a framework by using some ferns, some climbing rose, some Solomon seal, a little bit of Ampelopsis foliage, great name there, some berberis, and a little bit of height from some fantastic Phlomis russellianus seed heads and some wispy grasses, which will be a delight in the garden during the months of September and October when those plumes start to break out. So to hold all these pieces of plant material together in this rather wide necked stone urn, I've got some chicken wire which I've just scrunched together, which gives me a framework to anchor everything into position, and then I can start to build up the shape by adding flowers and more pieces of foliage into here. The garden during July is always rather resplendent, and normally by being at the shows my garden gets lots of regular pruning and clipping, whereas this year I'm only really clipping to use for myself here at home or share a few flowers as gifts for friends. So there's lots and lots of plant material that needs constantly cutting and chopping back, because normally it's all being used in big floral installations and lots of flower talk events. And one of my favourite things in the garden always is the Alchemilla mollis, and it's been yet again glorious this year with an absolute effusion of little lime green florets. It's a great piece of plant material to add in and mix in amongst flowers. It really is worth its weight in gold, and I know it can be a slightly invasive type of plant material, but I love it. I really celebrate it. A little bit of frothy filipendula, which almost looks like candy floss, very similar to a stilby there, but much taller, standing around 5 foot in the garden, so one of the back of the border giants. Everything I grow here in the garden is for cutting, and there's no bit of the garden that I don't use as a source for plant material. So herbaceous borders, shrubberies, and of course the cutting garden itself, where stuff is primarily grown in raised beds, where I grow lots of annuals, biennials, and also some perennials in there. And anybody can grow cut flowers. It's not a difficult thing to do. It's achievable and attainable for absolutely anyone and everyone, and there's something quite wonderful about wandering around your own garden and gathering flowers. So I'll just turn this around so you can see how we're looking so far, just building up a framework there, a shape with the urn and the flowers just bursting out of the top there, and I'm just starting to establish the height. I've got some alliums there, a little bit of plume poppy, and I'll just keep adding layers and textures into this design. Veronica astrum, which is this little chap here, which is just like an overgrown Veronica basically, is a fantastic thing to use in flower arrangements. It's very stately, very elegant, with these big broad spires of flowers, a real back of the border drama queen, very effective to have in the garden, and something that is a real statement flower. Very easy to grow, herbaceous perennial, will grow in either full sun or semi-shade. Well, normally at our flower shows, like at RHS Tatton, it's a chance for us to visit the nurseries and to top up by adding even more flowers and pieces of foliage and shrub plant materials into our border collections. And there's so many wonderful nurseries always exhibiting at the RHS flower shows that I do miss seeing them this year. But do remember, of course, that you can still support the nurseries and buy some British blooms by placing online orders with the nurseries and having them delivered through mail order. I know lots and lots of the fantastic British growers are sending out plant materials on a weekly basis to all 4 corners of the country, and it's a really good way of supporting them during these rather difficult times for the horticultural industry. Well, astrantias just running through here, just a merge of astrantias, and then also some phlox. And this display that I'm creating in honour of Tatton Park Flower Show is a real sort of country effusion of all my favourite herbaceous type of plant materials, which I normally enjoy picking and using and taking to Tatton to share with everybody who has come along to spend a splendid day visiting that show. I've been lucky enough to work at Tatton for quite a number of years, and I've also designed flowers in the mansion house at Tatton itself, which is a glorious garden, a fantastic garden to go and visit. Very old, historically important garden, and an absolute myriad of interesting plant materials there. Well, I'm sure many people who are listening to me here and watching this video have been busy gardening over the weekend, as we've enjoyed some fairly clement weather during the middle of July, and I'm astounded just how quick the months have flown by since the beginning of the coronavirus period. And I'm sure many of us have found our gardens, our window boxes, our tubs, our indoor plants a salvation during this time, and they've given us some solace and something to focus on and to nurture and enjoy watching their development. And certainly that's been the case for me here in the garden. So just show you how I'm looking here with some feverfew, the little white feverfew just running through there, some campanula lactifolia, some Astrantia rubra, some Astrantia major there, so different flowers just starting to build up the layers, the levels within the urn. When I'm creating a fairly informal design such as this, it's quite important just to keep the look very naturalistic and not to get it looking too contrived or too organised. I want it to just be a burst, a riot of country style flowers arranged very loosely, very open and quite natural in its feel. It's a facing arrangement. By that I mean everything's looking out towards me, and it's not got a definite all-round feel, but I am creating that illusion as if it is going all round by having some pieces of plant material looking in the direction of the back of the design, and that creates depth, because a flower arrangement wants to be a three-dimensional feature. It doesn't want to look flat-fronted, and we want to create that shape by giving transition where we've got the different shapes and sizes stepping down, so there's lots and lots of graduation of the different forms within here. A few spires of pink veronica, and then I've got some of the lupins which are on their second flush of flower at the moment. These have produced the big sort of statement piece flowers earlier in the season, and then after chopping some of the stems back, they have rewarded me by adding some further spikes, albeit smaller, but still equally as useful for arranging. So some very, very pretty lupins. I do love lupins very much. They really are a cottage garden favourite. And then a few roses just to take down towards the front, just to start to build up towards the centre here. It's been a great year for the roses. I garden on clay and they do extremely well on the clay soil. They seem to thrive in that type of environment. And if you want a great repeat flowering rose to grow, I would strongly recommend buying a few plants of rose bonica. And bonica is a repeat flower, as I mentioned. It's a semi-shrub rose and it's very, very easy to grow. A little bit of pruning back each year just to keep on top of it, but it will flower its little socks off right through into October, having different periods of flowering, taking a little break in between, but then more flowers always coming in successions. Relatively disease resistant, can, like many roses, suffer a little bit from some black spot, but generally it's fairly hardy. It's quite easy to have. Some astilbes going in amongst the roses. This is like floral candy floss with these points and spikes of blooms. Fantastic colour on this very deep, strong cerise pink. So just adding some astilbe into there. And I'm nearly there, in fact. I've just got a few more flowers that I want to add in. Just another campanula there. Just take that right up to the top. So adding some more flowers towards the top there. And really a design like this is very much inspired from those Dutch master flower paintings which have become such a influential thing within floristry and flower arranging. For years now I think we've admired that sort of very loose, informal way that those masters have created those floral installations in oils and on canvas, and we just replicate that by adding that look through with our garden plant material. So a few stems of the everlasting sweet pea, the Lathyrus just running through the middle there. And then I'm going to balance that on the other side with some clematis, and this is one of my favourite clematis that's just started flowering in the garden, and this is Clematis alba luxurians, and it's one of the Viticella clematis. It has these rather loose little open shaped flowers, just creamy white, striped with a tinge of blue and a definite flash of green. So quite a wild, wispy little clematis, but very, very beautiful to have. So I'm just letting a little bit of this fall down in a flurry just to soften that very dominant, weighty base that the urn has. So a couple more clematis. Let's take those right to the front here. So I'm just placing things in, just tucking down into the urn there, ensuring the stems are hitting the water. And then my final flowers are going to be some poppies and some thistles. And although poppies are not long lasting, there's something absolutely dreamy about them. And this scarlet red one, which is a self-set within the garden, has just burst into flower over the past few days. And I often think of poppies when I think of RHS Tatton Flower Show, and many of them are used in the show gardens there. And I know last year when I designed the iconic RHS letters for Tatton Flower Show, I had some poppies featured in there. So that's bringing back a memory for me of last year's show, which was a great event, and fantastic weather we enjoyed as well for most of Tatton last year. So finally, some spiky forms to finish off with, which are the Eryngiums. Very prickly creatures, which is why they're going in last, because they will attack my hands. However carefully and gingerly I work my fingers in and out of the arrangement, so leaving the spiky ones, the beasts, until the very end here, but completely giving a change in texture with the thistles, and this explosion of herbaceous plant material, all garden gathered from my own garden here in the heart of Derbyshire. And it's just a riot of different shapes, colours, textures, and it's summertime in a packet. It's just like capturing the essence of a rich summer wine. So bringing a little bit of Tatton, the magic of RHS Tatton, to all of my friends and followers on my various social media channels. And I know lots of people like myself will be missing being at that wonderful show, but hopefully this arrangement will bring a little bit of Tatton magic to all of you today. Enjoy.